नमस्कार मित्रांनो, वेलकम टू एस क्लास एज्युकेशन. आज आपण पाहणार आहोत 12th स्टँडर्ड बायोलॉजी चॅप्टर नंबर 2 रिप्रोडक्शन इन ॲनिमल्स लोअर अँड हायर ॲनिमल्स या चॅप्टरची संपूर्ण एक्सरसाइज. सो लेट अस स्टार्ट. फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन आहे मल्टिपल चॉईस क्वेश्चन. त्याच्यामध्ये पहिला आहे द नंबर ऑफ न्यूक्लियाय प्रेझेंट इन अ झायगोट इज A2, B1, C4 अँड D. ॲक्च्युली हे D असलं पाहिजे. D is 8. So answer is option A, that is 2. After that, next, which of the following is the male reproductive organ in human? Option A, sperm. Option B, seminal fluid. Option C, testes. And option D, ovary. So correct answer is option C, that is testes. Third question, attachment of embryo to the wall of the uterus is known as A, fertilization, B, gestation, C, cleavage, and D, implantation. So correct answer is option D, that is implantation. Fourth one, rupturing of follicles and discharge of ova is known as A, capacitation, B, gestation, C, ovulation, and D is copulation. So answer is option C, that is ovulation. In human female, the fertilized egg gets implanted in uterus. Option A, after about 7 days of fertilization. Test tube baby technique is called A, in vivo fertilization, B, in situ fertilization, C, in vitro fertilization, and D, artificial insemination. So correct answer is option C, in vitro fertilization. The given figure shows a human sperm. Various parts of it are labeled as A, B, C, and D. Which labeled part represents a chromosome? So correct answer is option D, which represents a chromosome. Correct answer is option D, A represents a chromosome. Next question, answer in one sentence. What is meant by embryo and fetus? So answer is embryo is the developing organism from fertilization to the end of the 8th week of development, while fetus is the developing organism from the beginning of 3rd month to birth. Next question is outline the path of sperm up to the urethra. So starts with seminiferous tubule, so it's U. Then rete testes, then vasa differentia, then epididymis, then vas efferentia, then ejaculatory duct, and then urethra. Next is which glands contribute fluids to the semen. So prostate gland and seminal vesicles are glands that contribute fluids to the semen. After that, next, name the endocrine gland involved in maintaining the sex characteristics of males. Testis is the endocrine gland involved in maintaining the sex characteristics of males. Where does fertilization and implantation occur? Fertilization usually takes place in the ampulla of the fallopian tube, while implantation occurs in the endometrium of the uterus. It is fundus part of uterus. Enlist the external genital organs in female. So the external genital organs include vestibule, labia minora, labia majora, clitoris, and mons pubis. Due to difference between blastula and gastrula. Blastula is formed during the early mitotic division through the process of blastulation from morula, while gastrulation is formed at a later stage through the process of gastrulation from blastula. What is the difference between embryo and zygote? Zygote is unicellular and first stage of development, while embryo is multicellular and is formed after zygote formation. Fill in the blanks. A. The primary sex organ in human male is testis. Second, the uterus is also called the womb. Third, sperm fertilizes ovum in the ampulla of fallopian tube. Fourth, the disc-like structure which helps in the transfer of substances to and from the fetus body is called as placenta. Fifth, gonorrhea is caused by dash bacteria, and name of the bacteria is Neisseria gonorrhea. The hormone produced by testes is testosterone. Short answer type question. First, write a note on budding in hydra. Answer: in hydra, a small outgrowth is produced towards the basal end of the body. It develops as a bud which grows and forms tentacles and develops into a new individual. This process is called budding. Explain the different methods of reproduction occurring in sponges. Sponges reproduce both sexually and asexually. Sexually methods include fusion of sperm and ovum to produce ovum, while asexual sponges reproduce via gametes formation in unfavorable condition. Write a note on IVF. It is a process of fertilization where an egg is combined with sperm outside the body in a test tube or glass plate to form a zygote under stimulated conditions in the laboratory. The zygote or early embryo, which is up to 8 blastomeres, could be then transferring into the fallopian tube for further development. Comment on any two mechanical contraceptive methods. Two mechanical contraceptive methods are as follows. First is condom. It is a thin rubber sheet that is used to cover the penis of the male during copulation. It prevents the entry of ejaculated semen into the female reproductive tract. Second is diaphragm, cervical caps and vaults. These devices used by female are made up of rubber. The devices is inserted into the female reproductive tract to cover the cervix during copulation. Write a note on tubectomy. The permanent birth control method in men is called as vasectomy, and in women it is called as tubectomy. These are surgical methods also called sterilization. In this process, a small part of vas deferens is tried and cut, and a small part of the fallopian tube is tried and cut. This blocks gamete transport and prevent pregnancy. Give the name of causal organism of syphilis and write on its symptom. Causative agent, that is Treponema pallidum, which is a bacteria. Symptoms: primary lesion called canker at the site of infection. Canker is formed on external genitalia, causing skin rashes, paralysis, and degenerative changes also occur in the heart and brain. What is colostrum? Colostrum is the sticky and yellow fluid secreted by mammary glands soon after childbirth. It contains proteins, lactose, and mother's antibodies, that is IgA. The antibodies present in it helps in developing resistance for the newborn baby at a time when its own immune response is not fully developed. Answer the following questions. Describe the phases of menstrual cycle and their hormonal control. The cycle is divided into four phases. First is menstrual phase. The beginning of each cycle is taken as the first day where menses or loss of blood about 45 to 100 ml takes place, and it lasts for approximately 5 days, that is average 3 to 7 days. During these 5 days, many primordial follicles develop into primary and few of them secondary follicles under the effect of FSH. Proliferative phase or follicular phase or postmenstrual phase. This phase is the duration between end of menstruation and release of ovum, that is ovulation. Duration of this phase is more variable than other phases. Generally, it extends from 5th to 13th day of menstrual cycle. The stimulation for proliferation of new follicles is influenced by GnRH, which stimulates release of FSH. Ovulatory phase. It is the shortest phase of menstrual cycle. It involves rupturing of mature Graafian follicles and release of ovum, that is secondary oocyte, into the pelvic cavity, usually on the 14th day of menstrual cycle. Rapid secretion of LH by positive feedback mechanism causes the mature follicles to rupture. Ovulation may be accompanied by mild or severe pains in lower abdomen. Secretory phase or luteal phase. The duration of this phase is between the ovulation and beginning of the next menses. This phase is the longest phase. It lasts for 14 days from 15th day to 28th day of the cycle. The corpus luteum releases progesterone, a small amount of estrogen, and inhibin. Under the influence of these hormones, the endometrial glands grow, become coiled, and start uterine secretion. Endometrium becomes more vascularized and thickens up to 8 to 10 mm. Inhibin stops secretion of FSH. These changes are necessary for fertilization and subsequent implantation. So you have to draw the diagram of menstrual cycle along with all the phases. Next, explain the steps of parturition. Parturition is the process of giving birth to a baby. It is controlled by a complex neuroendocrine mechanism. Signals arises from the fully formed fetus and placenta cause mild uterine contraction. It is accompanied by rise in estrogen progesterone ratio, increasing oxytocin receptors in the uterine muscles. Explain the histological structure of testes. The testis is externally covered by a collagenous connective tissue layer called as tunica albuginea. Outer to it is incomplete peritoneal covering called as tunica vaginitis, and inner to it is called as tunica vasculosa, a thin membranous and vascular layer. Fibers from tunica albuginea divide each testis into about 200 to 300 testicular lobules, each with 1 to 4 highly coiled seminiferous tubule. Each seminiferous tubule is internally lined by cuboidal germinal epithelium and few large pyramidal cells called as Sertoli cells or subtentacular cells. Subtentacular cells. You can also check out the diagram. If you want, you can take the screenshot or check it out from the textbook. Describe the structure of blastula. The blastula is usually a spherical layer of cell surrounding a fluid-filled cavity. Mammals at this stage form a structure called a blastocyte, characterized by an inner cell mass that is distinct from the blastula. Again, check out the diagram. Done. Next. Explain the histological structure of ovary in human. There are different stages of development of the oocyte in human ovary. These changes in the ovary are cyclic, occurring during each menstrual cycle, and it involves maturation of the primordial follicles into primary, secondary, and Graafian follicles. Each primary follicle has multilayered cuboidal follicular cells, the stroma cells, and add theca cells over the follicle. It now changes into a secondary follicle. There is growth of oocyte and the granulosa cells increase in the number. They start producing the hormone estrogen. The secondary follicle grows into the Graafian follicle by addition of more follicular cells as this process of maturation of follicles takes place. They begin to move towards the surface of ovary. The Graafian follicle presses against the thin wall of the ovary, giving it blistered appearance. The egg is released from the Graafian follicle during ovulation, and remaining part of the follicle changes into a temporary endocrine gland called as corpus luteum. If fertilization does not take place, the corpus luteum degenerates into a white scar called as corpus albicans. You can check out the diagram. Done. Next. Describe the various methods of birth control to avoid pregnancy. The birth control measures which deliberately prevent fertilization are referred to as contraceptives. These methods are of two types, temporary and permanent. Temporary methods. These are of following types. Natural methods or safe period or rhythm method. In this natural method, the principle of avoiding chances of fertilization is used. A week before and a week after menstrual bleeding is considered the safe period for sexual intercourse. Coitus interruptus or withdrawal. In this method, the male partner withdraws the penis from the vagina just before ejaculation so as to avoid insemination. Lactational amenorrhea, absence of menstruation. This method is based on the fact that ovulation does not occur during the period of intense lactation following parturition. Chemical methods are called as spermicides. So in these methods, the chemicals like foam, tablets, jellies, and creams are usually used by the female partner before sexual intercourse. If these chemicals are introduced into the vagina, they adhere to the mucosa membrane and immobilize and kill the sperms. Mechanical method or barrier method. In this method, with the help of barriers, the ovum and sperm are prevented from physically meeting. The mechanical barriers are of following types. Condom. It is a thin rubber sheet that is used to cover the penis of the male during copulation. It prevents the entry of ejaculated semen into the female reproductive tract. Diaphragm, cervical caps, and volts. These devices used by the female are made up of rubber. They prevent conception by blocking the entry of sperms through the cervix. Intrauterine devices or IUDs. These clinical devices are plastic or metal objects. A doctor or trained nurse places the IUDs into uterus. These devices include lipase loop, copper releasing IUDs, that is CUT, CU7, multiload 375, etc., and hormone releasing IUDs, that is LNG20 progesterone. Physiological or oral devices. Physiological devices are used in the form of tablets and hence are popularly called as pills. It is an oral contraceptive used by the female. The pill contains progesterone and estrogen. They inhibit ovulation and hence no eggs are released from the ovary of the female using these pills, and thus contraception cannot occur. Other contraceptives. The birth control implant is a contraceptive device by the female. It is a tiny thin rod about the size of a matchstick. It is implanted under the skin of the upper arm, and they contain progesterone and estrogen. Their modes of action is similar to that of the pill. They prevent pregnancy for 3 to 4 years. Permanent method. The permanent birth control method in men is called as vasectomy, and in women it is called as tubectomy. These are surgical methods and also called as sterilization. In vasectomy, a small part of the vas deferens is tied and cut, whereas in tubectomy, a small part of fallopian tube is tied and cut. This blocks gamete transport and prevent pregnancy. What are the goals of RCH program? To create awareness among people about various aspects related to the reproduction, to provide the facilities to people to understand and build up reproductive health, to provide support for building up a reproductively healthy society, to bring about a change mainly in three critical health indicators, that is reducing total infertility rate, infant mortality rate, and maternal mortality rate. Which hormones are involved in parturition? Parturition is controlled by a complex neuroendocrine mechanism. It is accompanied by rise in estrogen progesterone ratio and increase in oxytocin receptors in uterine muscle. Uh, they fully the fully developed fetus gives signals for uterine contractions by secreting adrenocorticotropic hormone, that is ACTH, from pituitary and corticosteroids from adrenal glands. This triggers release of oxytocin from mother's pituitary gland, which acts on uterine muscle of mother and causes vigorous uterine contractions. What is the function of male accessory glands? The male accessory glands are as follows. First one is seminal vesicle. It is a pair of glands lying on the posterior side of urinary bladder. It secretes an alkaline saline fluid which contains fructose, fibrinogen, and prostaglandins. It contributes about 60% of total volume of the semen. Fructose provide energy for sperm movement, with fibrinogen coagulates the semen into a bolus for quick propulsion in the vagina. The prostaglandins stimulate reverse peristalsis in vagina and uterus, adding faster movements of sperm towards the egg in the female body. Prostate gland, it is a larger and single gland made up of 20-30 lobes and is located underneath the urinary bladder. It surrounds the urethra and releases a milky white and slightly acidic prostatic fluid into the urethra. It forms about 30% of volume of semen, and it contains citric acid, acid phosphates, and various other enzymes. The acid phosphates protect the sperm from the acidic environment of the vagina. Next one is, what is capacitation? Give its importance. Capacitation is a process that requires 5 to 6 hours, during which the acrosome members becomes thin. That is calcium enters the sperm and their tail begins to show rapid whiplash movements. As a result of capacitation, sperm becomes extra active and begin to start moving upwards from vagina to uterus and to the oviduct. Long answer type question. Explain the following parts of male reproductive system along with label diagram shown in the parts showing these parts: testis, vas deferentia, epididymis, seminal vesicle, prostate gland, and penis. So you can check out the diagram. Next. So testis. A pair of testes, mesodermal in origin, are formed in the lower abdominal cavity. They are located in a pouch called as scrotum. During early fetal life, the testes develop in abdominal cavity, and later they descended into the scrotal sac through a passage called as inguinal canal, and its testis is oval in shape, 4 to 5 cm long, 2 to 3 cm wide, and 3 cm thick. Accessory ducts. The accessory duct include retro testis, vas efferentia, epididymis, vas deferens, and ejaculatory duct and urethra. All the seminiferous tubule of the testis at the posterior surface from a network of tubules called as retitestis. 12 to 20 fine tubules arising from retitestis are vasa efferentia. They carry the sperm from the testis and open into the epididymis. It is a long and highly coiled tube which is differentiated into a upper caput, middle corpus, and lower cauda, whatever, epidermis. The sperm undergo maturation in epidermis. Posteriorly, it leads into the vas deferens, which travels up to the abdominal cavity and loops over the ureter to open into the urethra. Before doing so, it joins the duct of the seminal vesicles to form the ejaculatory duct. The ejaculatory duct passes through the prostate gland and opens into the urethra. The urethra provides a common passage for the urine and semen and hence is called as urinogenital duct. In males, the urethra is long and extended through the penis. It opens to the outside by an opening called the urethral meatus or urethral orifice. Cowper's gland. Okay, so the gland should be not here, should not be here. It should be in the gland section. So it's printing mistake. It should be below in the glands. Okay. Okay, so first it will be seminal vesicle, then you have to write prostate gland, and then you have to write Cowper's gland. Okay, so write accordingly. If you want, you can take out the screenshots. Done. Okay, then next part is external genitalia. Again, if you want, you can take out the screenshots. In external genitalia, you have to mention penis as well as scrotum also. Describe the female reproductive system of human. The female reproductive system consists of following parts: a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviduct, uterus, vagina, external genitalia, a pair of vestibular glands, a pair of mammary glands, and etc. So the answers are too long. If you want, you can cut out them. Like the centimeters or the measurements are not that much required. If you can't remember, you can go for them. But if you can't remember, or if you think that the answers is too long, then you can skip this part. Okay, you just have to write the part, its location and its function. The measurements and all things are not required, so accordingly you can prepare your own answers. So depending upon how much you can remember or what you want to write in your exam, or how much marks the question can be asked in the exam, you can cut short the answer. Done. So next is about oviduct. Again, in oviduct there are there are three parts. So depending on you whether if you want to explain those parts or not, you can make the answer more short. Next is uterus. Again, uterus also has its own part, but if you want, you can just write names of those parts without mentioning everyone's like location, function, whatever. Next is vagina. Again, the measurements are not required. If you want, you can skip them. Also, just have to mention the location of the vagina and the main function of the vagina during parturition or any other. But if you want, you can also cut down all the other information. Next is external genitalia. Again, if you want, you can just write their names and just explain the functions if it's much important, or you can say much important, but yeah, you can just list them. Next is accessory glands or vestibular glands or Bartholin's glands. It is a pair of glands homologous to the barbothral or Cowper's gland of the male. They open into the vestibule and releases lubricating fluid. Next is mammary glands, accessory organs of female reproductive system for production and release of milk after parturition. Development of the mammary gland occurs at puberty under the influence of estrogen and progesterone. Lactotrophic hormone, that is LTH, or prolactin helps in development of lactiferous tubule during pregnancy. So you have to draw the diagram of female reproductive system, and along with that you have to draw the diagram of mammary glands if you want, as they have not mentioned. Describe the process of fertilization. Sexual reproduction primarily involves formation and fusion of gametes. Fertilization is the later process which involves fusion of the haploid male and haploid female gamete, resulting into formation of zygote, which is diploid. Like in other mammals, in humans, the process of fertilization is internal, but it usually takes place in the ampulla of the fallopian tube. The fertilized egg or zygote will develop into embryo, and this process occurs within the uterus. Next is how actually the fertilization occurs, or what is the method of or mechanism of fertilization. Again, depending on marks, if the question is asked, let us say for 2 to 3 marks, you just have to enlist the mechanism of fertilization rather than explaining each state or each stage. But again, if the question is asked for 5 marks or something like that, you have to explain each step which is involved in the mechanism of fertilization. Okay, so the first step is movement of sperm towards egg. After that, if you want, you can please take screenshots of the pages, as I won't be able to provide you the PDF, so you just have to take the screenshots, whatever answers you want. Okay, then next is entry of sperm into the egg. Again, if you want, please take out these screenshots. Again, the answers are too long because it's taken directly from the textbook, and if you check out, it is like the whole page is dedicated to this particular answer. If you have read the NCERT or any other reference books, you can also free to take the answers from there. As in biology, the what matters is the scientific language and the proper explanation. It is nothing like you have to write from Maharashtra board only. You can check out any other textbooks, whatever you find easy to remember, write, or easy language. Next is acrosome reaction. Done. Next is activation of ovum and fusion of egg and sperm. Okay, next syngamy, what you mean by karyogamy, etc. And then the diagram. Again, the diagram is quite, you can say that it is, we can explain the diagram, or even if you remember the steps which are given in the diagram, you can elaborate them in your own language. Then next is cleavage, blastomers, etc. So this is the last question. So we have to write about the cleavage, and you can check out the answers. Again, the answers are from the textbook only, so I'm not going to read them. You can check out the textbook and the diagram also. Okay, so it's just a screenshots. I mean, the photos are taken from the textbook only. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video helped you in your studies. Thank you so much, and bye bye.